Welcome to the MCAT Multimedia Series, a MCAT analysis of Soren Kierkegaard's Fear and Trembling. Faith is namely this paradox that the single individual is higher than the universal. The 19th century Danish philosopher Soren Kierkegaard believed that an individual's obligations and actions must be based on their relationship with God, rather than on objective and universal norms. Kierkegaard was deeply engaged with 19th century philosophical ethics, and particularly the work of Hegel. But his 1843 book Fear and Trembling countered Hegel's emphasis on objective reasoning in ethics, and instead offered an account of individual responsibility that privileges the individual's relationship with God. Kierkegaard argued that God's requirements transcends the ethical sphere. He guided his readers towards a way of understanding themselves in relation to God and embracing the sacrifices that God demands. Kierkegaard uses the biblical story of Abraham and Isaac to show that in some cases there can be no purely ethical solution. God asks Abraham to choose. Either he must sacrifice his son or disobey God's will. There is no purely ethical solution, merely the choice between two evils. Kierkegaard believed that Abraham's choice to sacrifice his son as God's will was a decision that was based on his relationship with God, rather than on objective and universal norms of a given society. We can better understand the problems of negotiating between the ethical norms of a society and the requirements of God by considering the example of a gift. Suppose that someone you love, your brother, gives you a new stereo system. You know that he has worked hard to pay for it and can hardly afford it. The stereo is perfect, but when you're unpacking it, you realize that it already has someone else's name scratched on it. Your brother must have purchased stolen goods. He is about to come for a visit, and you want him to know how much you appreciate the gift. You don't want to reject it on the grounds that it might have been stolen, especially as he is completely unaware of the fact. But you also think you have an ethical obligation to return the stereo to its original owner. As a result, you are torn between your relational obligations to your brother and your ethical obligations to report the theft. Your relationship with your brother complicates the ethics of returning the stereo, just as Abraham's relationship with God complicated the ethics that tell him not to kill his son. Kierkegaard used the analogy of Abraham's choice because he thought it best demonstrated the difficulty of resolving such ethical conundrums. Ultimately, though, he felt that the individual relationship is always stronger. One's relationship to God, he thought, must always come first, and it transcends other ethical norms. Fear and Trembling marks a key development in Kierkegaard's thought, and is a major contribution to 19th century philosophy. A more detailed examination of his ideas can be found in the MCAT analysis.